gunshot wound. It's unclear right now. Officers did disperse and the SWAT team was called out. And as officers arrived there on the scene, the SWAT team moved in. They blew out the windows and they're looking at live pictures there of the aftermath. When SWAT moved in and opened the driver's side door, they found the body of the suspect. Yeah, we now have confirmation from authorities that the suspect is in fact dead. These are live pictures from the scene, US 27 at Griffin. What a tense moment all around for authorities, for SWAT. And you can't help but think about that poor victim who was just caught in the middle of all this, driving along at 10 o'clock in the morning, slammed into, at a high rate of speed, 115 miles an hour by the suspect, violent crash, then this scene. And those shots, I mean, that really is what set the tone for the morning as we waited for all this to play out, because at first there was a lull of silence and police were approaching the suspect's vehicle, and then those shots were fired. They retreated. The assumption was that those shots were being fired at them, and now police telling us it appears that was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That suspect who was in that vehicle is now dead. The scene itself is still very active, as you can see. An amazing SWAT presence, a lot of police presence out there while they've been working this scene, and probably for the next, I don't know, at least hour or so. US 27 at this point at Griffin has been closed in both directions. What a very, very sad ending, only because we don't have confirmation as to what happened to the victim, but when you hear that the victim, number one, was ejected from that vehicle, and then you hear confirmation from BSO that there was no transport to the hospital, one can only assume the worst in this case for that victim. As you look at live pictures from the scene, US 27 at Griffin, it has come to an end with the suspect seemingly committing suicide on that scene after the crash. And you're watching the end here as this unfolds, and you have to hand it to the men and women of law enforcement who have really gone above and beyond today. They were fired upon at one point and had to bring out the SWAT team. This has come to a peaceful end. It appears the suspect in this, after all the violence that ensued, has taken his or her own life. We have no confirmation of the identity of the person who was behind the wheel of that vehicle, that person who was accused of shooting at two people and slamming the vehicle into another person who, by all accounts right now, it appears that may have died there on the scene as no transport was called for. That was the driver of the vehicle that we saw being slammed into by the suspect's vehicle right here. As you continue to look at these live pictures there, this started at about 9:50 this morning and has come to an end now. And it really is a tragic scene, and a lot of violence ensued as a result of that initial incident there at 123rd Avenue and 190th Street, which was the result of a possible domestic dispute, is how this was described to us as it began. The shots were fired by the suspect there at that original scene that we saw Sheldon at. And then now this has come to an end with the suspect taking his or her own life. 7's Brandon Beyer is on the scene, has been there for a while now, and is here now to bring us up to date. Brandon.
Well, I can tell you from where we are now, it's clear, it's consistent with what I'm hearing from you guys there on the desk, and also from Ralph up in Skyforce HD. It's probably too early to say that the scene is wrapping up here, but what they are doing here at this location, we're east of the scene on Griffin Road. They're moving some of these emergency vehicles out of the way. I'm talking about like the ambulances, the fire trucks. There were 4 or 5, big engine fire trucks here. Double that amount of ambulances from Davie, Broward County, obviously Davie, Broward County, but BSO, multiple agencies. We're down to just a couple of ambulances here who were obviously there on standby in case we had a situation where there were multiple injuries and multiple transports. But as this appears to be winding down from a tension standpoint, they're clearing some of these emergency vehicles from Griffin Road. It looks like we'll be able to move up another block or two west within the next 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay. All right, Brandon, you're looking at live pictures right now on the aftermath of what started as a shooting in the hammocks and then continued on with the police pursuit, a violent crash, and this is the end here. The suspect that was behind the wheel, I want to show you the collision, and there it is. It was violent, it was quick. That poor unsuspecting driver there was driving along US 27 Griffin Road, slammed into suspect's vehicle came to a stop after going through that sign. That is the victim's vehicle. That driver of that vehicle that you see there was ejected. When officers pulled up and came up on that scene and started to approach the suspect's vehicle, there were shots fired. They dispersed and had to create a barrier to try to get that victim out of that area. And it is presumed that the driver of the vehicle that was slammed into did not survive in this, as no transport was called to that